Jacobs is the first female commander of the Antelope Valley's California Highway Patrol Office. She is a seasoned professional with 25 years experience in law enforcement and has served in her capacity as commander since July 1st, 2013. Captain Jacobs is a U.S. Air Force veteran who served overseas in areas such as England as well as in the United States as a nuclear and conventional weapons specialist. She entered the CHP Academy in February of 1989 and graduated in July of 1989, whereby she was assigned to the central Los Angeles area. You may be familiar with this office as it was the location of the famous CHIPS television program. Now, if you know what that is, that means you're as old as I am. During her 25 years with the patrol, she has served the people of California in 7 different offices, all within the LA County. She lives locally and continues to serve locally. While a consummate professional who advocates professional public safety, she is also an active member of the community who has been known to have safely raced cars in a CHP recruitment video, and to proudly sharing her anecdotes for stress, which are singing and cracking jokes. And
no singing.
No singing, although we are giving her karaoke microphone. Again, Captain.
Hi, everybody. When Isaac first approached me to speak at today's luncheon, I immediately said, well, what topic do you want me to talk about? And I figured it would be something along the lines of public safety, start smart, distracted driving. And he says, well, I want you to talk about yourself. Well, I immediately kind of backed up from that because as police officers, we're taught early on, you don't share personal stuff with people because, you don't want to be targeted. So I thought, well, what can I share? What can I talk about that'll be of interest? And at the same time, kind of weave in what I do in the community. So believe it or not, the first word that came to my mind was uniforms. And I thought, well, where am I going to go with that? And then I thought, well, you know what? I think I can make something of this. So a long, long time ago, I won't tell you how many years ago, I was raised in a lower middle class neighborhood. And it was a typical family dynamic for the time. My mom stayed at home, my dad worked. There were 3 of us. I had 2 twin brothers, who at the time were the bane of my existence, of course. 2 against 1 always, which is where I learned how to fight. And, but one thing was, even though money was tight, was always touted as of utmost importance was education. So we had a Catholic school that was 2 blocks from where we lived, and so we all had the opportunity to go to Catholic school. Well, thank goodness that school was only 2 blocks from where I lived, because I lived in a neighborhood that had a local gang that enjoyed chasing me to school on a somewhat regular basis. So because we went to Catholic school, we weren't allowed to fight. So I had to think of new and creative ways on how to get to school every day so that I wasn't accosted by these gangbangers. And my mother put prime importance on making sure that I was clean and neat. So those darn Catholic school skirts had like 1.5 million pleats in them, right? I had to iron that sucker every day, right before I went to school the next day. So by the time I finished my Catholic school education, which was grade school and high school, I was done with uniforms, right? No more uniforms. So I graduated from high school, and I thought, you know what, I don't know that I necessarily want to go right off to college. I got a few scholarships, but not really enough to get me through. So I thought, well, what can I do with my life? And I came from a family where military experience was the norm. So I said, well, you know what, I'm going to go into the military. And I looked at each of the branches, did a little bit of homework, and I thought Air Force suited what I wanted to do best, because I wanted to get out, I wanted to travel, I wanted to see some of the world. So I signed up for the Air Force, and I went in, and for any of you that have, anybody in here prior military? Any hands? Okay. So when you go in there and you tell them what you want to do, they nod sagely at you, and then they direct you right to where they want you to go, because that's where they have the opening. So I said, hey, I'm interested in electronics. I want to get into electronics. Oh, we have the perfect job for you. It's called an armament system specialist. And you're going to be working on the circuit boards for all of these missile and bomb mechanisms. I said, okay, not a problem. Well, what they failed to tell me was there's two sides to that house. The first side is actually the electronic part where you work on the circuit boards. The second side of that house is where you actually physically pick up the bombs and pick up the missiles and put them on those fighter planes. Well, guess what part they gave me? That's right. All 5'2" of me, at the time 100 pounds, right? Trying to lift these puppies up, and it was very, very physically demanding. But I asked to go overseas, asked to go to England, because I didn't want to struggle too much with the language barrier. So instead, what I ended up struggling with was, anybody been to England? Any hands? Okay, bad weather and bad food. All right, and there was just no getting around either of them. It rained all of the time. I was so depressed for 2 years and 11 days that I was there. Did I say 11 days? 11 days extra that I was there. And the food, I don't think I had a good meal there other than at the chow hall. And if you have a good meal at the chow hall, that's saying something, right? Okay. So once again, I found myself in uniform, right? So in this time, instead of just having a little pleated skirt, I had my fatigues and I had my dress uniform. So I always had some type of uniform that I had to maintain, and I had to make sure that my brass looked good, and I had to make sure that my boots looked good. And that, of course, was instilled in me in the beginning by my mom. Make sure that you make a good impression. Look good, speak well, and doors will open for you. And my father also said that being in the military is going to open a lot of doors for you, more than you'll ever imagine. And he was actually right. One of those times where as a child you go, yeah, Dad. Sure, whatever you've got to say. But actually I've had quite a few doors open for me due to my military service. So I come back to America, almost kissed the soil when I got off that plane, and I went to South Carolina, where I was promptly introduced to Southern food. Okay? Now, being a California girl, there was no such thing as pulled pork, po' boys. There was no such thing as sweet tea unless you added the sugar yourself. There was no sweet potato pie. There was nothing. And boy, let me tell you, I fell hard for that Southern food, okay? I look back on photographs that I had of myself in South Carolina. Let me just say, I looked chubby. How about that, okay? Because I ate well every day. There was no dish that you couldn't give me that came from the South that I didn't want to eat, all right? So I enjoyed the time that I spent in the South. And then my military time was up. It was 4 years. It was time for me to do something new. So I thought, well, if I go home, what am I going to do? Because you know what? American Airlines is not hiring a bomb loader. I checked. Okay, no missile loaders. Not happening. So I thought, well, what can I do? So they had an opening for air traffic controller. So I said, I think I'll try my hand at that. So I submit my application, and I went and I took the exam. Well, I was going to say don't laugh, but you may as well laugh because I'm going to laugh at myself. I failed the logic portion of that exam. How can that be? I mean, I'm still flabbergasted to this day that I failed that, okay? So I just said, okay, well, obviously, you know what, this is a sign, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move on from my military service. So I get out of the military, I go back home. I stay with my parents for a little bit, and then I get a place of my own. Well, I went from Catholic school, being raised by my parents, to military where I'm fed 3 square meals a day, I have my own room, and now I am trying to make rent and pay for my phone and pay for my car and pay for all these things that I didn't have to pay for, didn't have to budget, and it was never taught to budget before. I worked 2 jobs. I worked 7 days a week, and at the end of the month, every month, if nothing went wrong, I had $50 left to my name. And after about 6 months of that, I was done. And I said, okay, I absolutely have to get my butt in gear, and I have to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And so my father suggested law enforcement. And I immediately scoffed at that. I'm like, Dad, hello? 5'2", female, did you not look at that? Going out there and kicking bad guys' butts, not really going to happen. Although, I do have the personality for it, thanks to my brothers. Did I tell you that? Okay, all right. So, I And he really painted a different picture, because my idea of law enforcement was what I saw on TV, right? 1 out of 12, you know, they're always going to a call, always doing something, taking people to the ground. And so I thought, oh, I don't know about that. So it was a completely different picture that was painted for me. So I decided, like I usually do, I'm going to do my homework. So I talked to local police agencies, I talked to the sheriffs, I talked to some other police entities, and I made sure that I talked to people that had just gotten on the job, people who were kind of quasi in the middle of their careers, and then people towards the end of their careers. And of all of the people that I spoke with, CHP officers were just as happy at the end of their career than they were at the beginning of their career. And they loved the department just as much. They weren't disillusioned, they weren't cynical, they weren't burnt out, and I thought, that's what I want. Because every day that I go to work, I'd like to be able to have fun. Not always going to happen, right? But I'd like it to be meaningful. And I'd like at the end of the day to say, I did a good job. I made a difference. So I said, okay, CHP is my career path. So I signed, I did all the things that you had to do. And I got fast-tracked because I was a female and they needed females, right? Even fast-tracking me, it took me almost 1 year to get onto the highway patrol. And so right now, I'm going to digress a little bit. I'm on a statewide recruitment task force to see what we can do to make this system more efficient. We lose so many good people who want to be a part of our organization, but because we take so darn long to get them through, we lose them to the Sheriff's Department, to LAPD, and of course that's their win, but it's our loss. And I compare state government sometimes, and city, county too, we're kind of a lumbering giant that we just can't get out of our own way sometimes. And so I'm really trying to do my part to make this system a little bit more efficient and get the people that we need to get into our organization. So once again, I find myself 6.5 months of quasi boot camp, doing knuckle push-ups for every infraction that I made. And what was I doing, ladies and gentlemen? Wearing another uniform, okay? So my little cadet uniform, I think it was made for a midget because I'm only 5'2", but every day those pants had to have hovered about the tops of my boots. And they just unmercifully made fun of me every day. I'm like, I have nothing to do with the uniform, this is what they give me, right? So finally, when it comes time for graduation, I get my nice tans on, they actually fit, because I had something to say about it. And they send me down to central Los Angeles, and it was just rocking and rolling fun. I loved every second that I was down in downtown LA. I loved it. Whatever you wanted to do. Did you want to get somebody with guns? I know where to go. You want to get somebody with drugs? I know where to go. You want to go talk to the prostitute, see what's happening? I know where to go. They're all there. It was just so much fun. And so after a while, it was time to move on. Because I didn't want to stay in one place too long for the most part, because I think sometimes you get stagnant. So it's nice to get a different environment, a different way of doing things, because each CHP area doesn't do it the same way. And how we do it in the Antelope Valley is certainly not how we do it in central Los Angeles, which is not how they do it in Santa Maria, which is not how they do it in Gardnerville. So it's nice to get that different perspective and to see different people. So I move on to Altadena, and then I decide I want to promote. And so each time I promote, we have to go to a different area. And then I meet my husband. And I had promoted to sergeant. And that was the best job on the highway patrol. You got to get in pursuits. You got to back up your people. You had a little bit of paperwork, but not quite as much. You didn't have to make all those management decisions. Best job ever. And then the husband comes along and goes, oh, well, I'm going to make a lieutenant. I'm like, you certainly can't beat me. That's not going to happen, because at my core, I'm very competitive, okay? Sports-wise, forget about it. You know what I mean? If you toss me a ball, I'll be lucky to catch it in my hand right now. But anything else, I'm like, oh, no. So we both compete for lieutenant. Who made lieutenant first? That would be me. That's right. But I never, to my credit, I did not rub it in for the poor guy, right? So he goes, well, I'm going to go for captain. I'm like, so am I. So with the sheriff's department, what do? They write an email, not even a memorandum, no resume, no nothing. They write an email, hey, I want to be a captain. Are you kidding me? I had to study for months. I had to take a test. I had to take a written. I had to take an oral. ahead of him, just so that you know. So he's actually still waiting to make captain. Poor guy. So, well, I do feel sorry for him. So there's one more step that I think I'm going to go ahead and try for, which is the assistant chief test. So I'm going to do that, and it's an assessment center. And so you go in and you basically try to convince all of these people from other organizations that you're the best person for that job. And so the last time I took it for the captain thing, I was sitting there and I had an inbox exercise, and I was going through all the papers and I was talking about all of the things. And there was this big corn-fed guy from like Nebraska. He had to have been 6'5", bald, blue eyes busting out of his shirt, and he was not buying anything I was laying down. I was talking to him, I was trying to convince him. And I thought, wow, he's a tough nut to crack. So I thought, you know what, when I'm talking to people, when I'm trying to convince people of something, I probably need to gear myself, not to the people that are nodding at me, right? But to that tough nut that's not necessarily buying what I'm selling, right? Because that's the person that I need to reach. So I've always remembered that. So in thinking about what I want to talk about today, when I talked about the uniform thing, I thought, you know what? I don't like wearing a uniform. Why have I consistently chosen careers or places where I have to wear a uniform? And I really think it's because the uniform represents honor, and it represents pride, and it represents service. And all of these things have been instilled in me through my parents, through Catholic school, through the jobs that I've chosen. And the mission of the Highway Patrol is to provide the highest level of safety, service, and security to the citizens of California. And that's something that I try to instill in my people every day, is go out, talk to people, get an understanding of what our community wants from us. Not just telling people, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. What do you need from the Highway Patrol? How can we make that happen with the programs that we have available to you? And I want to be the type of leader that it's not just necessarily by the book. I want people to be mindful of what they do and what they say every day, to take care of themselves, take care of their families, take care of each and every one of you, sometimes on an individual basis, sometimes in a group setting. But how can I, as an officer, how can I as an organization keep you safe and make your life better? And that's what I try to do with them every day. And when I leave the Antelope Valley, I really hope that I leave here, leave it in a better place than it is now, and in a safer place. And I'll use one example before I close. Is when I got up here, I looked at the fatal picture from the Antelope Valley. The Antelope Valley has the highest fatal picture in all of Los Angeles County. And each and every one of you know why, right? Miles and miles of straight roads, interspersed with an occasional stop sign. Pretty much once you get to Pear Blossom Highway, everyone just goes on the gas, right? It's wide open, you start going. And so people, they go faster, and they are not necessarily maybe thinking about what's ahead of them. They're not thinking about driving, they're thinking about their son's homework, they're thinking about what they're going to make for dinner, they're thinking about the dry cleaning that they have to pick up. So they're not focused on the fact that, hey, at Avenue D and 90th, there's a stop sign. I have to stop there. And they plow right through it, and most of the time, they're probably pretty lucky. And then sometimes they're not. And we all read about those people that aren't lucky, correct? So I said, hey, you know what, we're going to lower the fatal picture in the Antelope Valley. And this is what my officers and my sergeants told me. Can't do it. Not going to happen. You're not the only person that's tried. There's just no rhyme or reason to any of this. It's not DUI. It's not this. It's not that. There's just no rhyme or reason. Well, first of all, nobody tells me what I can or cannot do. It's going to happen. So we are going to do it. How are we going to do it? And we're going to use a proven formula that the CHP uses. We're going to use education, we're going to use enforcement, and we're going to use engineering. My public information officer and I made a commitment to everybody. We are going to go out and we're going to reach more people than we have before. We're going to talk to new people. We do the same town councils over and over again. We're going to go out to these small places that haven't seen the CHP in 2 or 3 years. We're going to make contact with them. I'm going to meet new people at the chamber luncheon and other different places. I'm going to make contact with you. We're going to educate everybody on the dangers of distracted driving, of DUI, of seatbelt. You've all heard it before, right? But people still dying, right? one person dead is one person too many. So I said, I'm going to do this, and officers, you're going to go out there and write more tickets. Oh, no, public's going to be mad at us, going to be upset, we're in a recession. And I said, nobody made them speed. Nobody made them not put that seatbelt on. Nobody put that final drink in their hand and said, drink up, buddy, get in the car. So anybody who receives a ticket, it's because of actions and decisions that they made, not you. You need to go out there and you need to enforce all of these things that we talk about on a daily basis. Distracted driving, speeding, drinking and driving, not wearing your seatbelts. And I said, I bet you by the end of the year, we're going to lower this fatal picture. And even if it's only lowered by 1, I'm going to consider that a victory. I certainly hope it's going to be lowered by a significant amount. Within the first 30 days of me telling my officers what I wanted of them, we lowered our fatal picture by 44% for that month for 2013. Thank you. And the next month it was 38%. And we were starting to get into the summer months, which of course the fatal picture usually rises, primarily because of the motorcyclists up on the mountain roads. But I really hope by the end of the year, January, when I come back and I talk to you, that again, if you it's only 1, it's a victory. But I hope it's going to be more than 1. And I hope that I've started something that's going to continue. Because our mileage death rate is how the Highway Patrol measures their success. I want the Antelope Valley success to be the lowest fatality rate ever since people started driving in the Antelope Valley. So, in conclusion, my personal philosophy is I think all of us want to live a life of meaning. We all want to make a difference. We want to make a difference in our own lives first so that we can make a difference in our children's lives, so we can make a difference in our family, we can make a difference in our community, and that ripple effect goes out to other people, whether it's Special Olympics that you're engaged in, whether it's reaching out to the marginalized within the Hispanic community, whether it's the African American community, whatever it might be. We need to get out there. We need to make a difference. And by doing that, you help other people to make a difference. And as a whole, we can certainly turn this world, which seems to be kind of a mess right now, I think we can turn it around. But if we believe we can't, and we're apathetic, and we don't do anything right, nothing will change. So thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity.
Just a few moments for questions. If anyone has any questions, I can bring the microphone over to you. We got a willing victim in the back here. Kimberly Mavers.
Thank you, Terry Norris.
Is the CHP involved with the scoping plan that's in the works right now for the Northwest Corridor 138 from D to I-5?
We get like an environmental impact report from Caltrans, and we weigh in on what we think the effect is going to be on traffic. So I have been I've been to a couple of the scoping meetings. I have written some letters talking about, of course, there's going to be a greater impact to traffic. But as far as being in that meeting, you know, maybe in Sacramento or with Caltrans people, I'm not aware that we are. No.
Okay.
Because what it boils down to is that even if we have any objections, it's still going to go through. So my job is how do I mitigate that traffic impact on the people that live there?
Well, and that's why I raised the question, because that corridor planning process right now is so important for all of us in the valley, not only for safety reasons, for logistics and for economic development reasons. When we expand that corridor, we want to make sure that it's the safest corridor east and west of the Antelope Valley for all of our benefit and safety and our ability to grow jobs. So anything that the CHP can do to help participate in that process and be a voice for reason would be greatly appreciated.
I agree with you, and we do work very well with Caltrans for the most part. Caltrans seems to have kind of a turnover, and a lot of times, and so the person I'm dealing with at this particular meeting may not be the next person I'm dealing with, and so there seems to be a little bit of logistical issues there, but for the most part, we do know what's going on. It's just that my stake in it, unfortunately, is a little bit smaller than a lot of the other agencies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Captain Jacobs. This is loud. Wanted to ask you, mentioned the Start Smart program. Could you just explain what that is and maybe how our community can help you?
Certainly. We we're actually getting a new Start Smart program, so I'm not quite sure how they revamped it. But what it is that we have children and their parents, not just the children. So children and their parents come to our office, and we have a PowerPoint presentation, and we have a couple of speakers. One of them is one of our senior volunteers, and one of them is one of our officers. And both of these people have lost family members to either a drunk driver or some poor decisions when it comes to distracted driving. And so what makes it unique is that you have real life stories and you have pictures that talk about the tragedy of making a poor choice and a poor decision. And this kind of brings home what we all as parents, we tell our kids, right? Don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. And pretty soon it's blah, 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 blah. Well, now you've got somebody who's a little closer to their age, or you've got pictures of that kid smiling in their cap and gown who no longer lives. And so it really makes an impact on those children along with their parents. It reinforces what the parents say. And so it's 2 hours, it's like a 6 to 8 class. We do one usually once a month. So we do it 12 times a year. And I really, I think every time I get one of the sheets back to talk about how the class went, overwhelmingly, I didn't think it would happen to me, or I didn't think it would happen to anybody that I know. And what a fantastic program. And thank you so much. I'm going to tell my friends. So it really does have an impact on the community. Could we do it in a larger venue? If that's something that people are interested in, we could. But the basic concept of this program is children and parents. So it's not necessarily an assembly, so the parents would have to be involved with this as well. And again, we're revamping the program, and Sacramento hasn't told me what the changes are, so we might want to hold off on a little bit, but that's the basics of that program.
Anyone else? All right.
Thank you very
Captain.
much, everybody.
At this time, I'd like to ask the directors come up and we can give Captain Jacobs a certificate thanking you for speaking. Antelope Valley's leader in uniform, non-pleated uniform.
And no skirts.
I don't wear skirts either. Oh, yes, yes. And someone from the office, at least, maybe all three. Let's get in here.
Can you see me? and Ken, I just want to point Ken out here for a minute. Smart move. He sits by himself at the lady table, the only table with all ladies. Oh, Ken, come sit with us. Ken.
Yes, you want to join us? All right, on behalf of the Antelope Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, thank you so much for being our keynote speaker, and thank you for your friendship.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Recording. Oh, we got one right there.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, we're getting another picture. We got the camera coming.
Oh, we do
We
have-
got another
okay,
one.
good.
Sorry, I came late.
So we also have our uniforms, nice red jackets. All right, here we go.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much, and late welcome to Larry Chabot.